This video is all about the different types of farming, and this is the first task I want you to do in this double lesson. So I want you to be able to explain the different types of farming, to learn what they are, and then explain what type of farming we have in Australia. So what is farming? Well, basically farming is where we start producing food on a bigger scale. Now you might be thinking, no, we've done this forever. We haven't. We started farming around 13 to 10,000 years ago. Before that, we were hunter-gatherers, and then we've changed into small-scale farming to the last 200 years, where we've become more industrial farmers. So let's have a little look at what those key words mean, and I'll explain to you via pictures and explanation of how farming's changed. So sort of 20,000 years, most humans, 15,000 years ago, most humans lived in small groups, and they were called hunter-gatherers, pretty much like Aboriginal people of Australia before colonisation, living in small groups, hunting animals, and basically moving from place to place, eating whatever people could find. That's what hunter-gatherers means. Hunting, as you can see in this picture, is what people were doing. Gathering is taking berries, fruits from trees and bushes as people move from place to place, because before that people were always on the move. Why? Because they were much more in touch with nature, and also they knew the seasons and when food would be plentiful and so on. So when we're talking about hunter-gatherers, and we're talking about pre-farming, and we're talking about how people were getting food together. Impacts on biomes, very, very small. Living in what's called an dynamic equilibrium, where people were in touch with nature. Okay, so very little environmental damage. We then move to about 15,000 years ago into what's called nomadic farming. Now, when someone's nomadic, again, they don't stay in the same place. They have their own land, but it's on a big scale. This is the type of farming that still goes on today in places like Mongolia, where people have huge amounts of flat land, as you can see in this photo, and they move their herds around. So we had lots of nomadic farms, and what you see there, we start seeing people getting, one particular species animal, like goats, sheep, and some forms of cows, reindeer, even in parts of Scandinavia, and they would move around. Again, very little impact on biomes, because when they noticed that the land needed to have time to regrow, they would move. So this constant movement of people and with their animals and farming really helped the environment. Human populations at that time still very, very, very steady. Therefore, there wasn't a big need to make sure we had lots and lots of food available. We really needed food when we needed it. So this next form of farming is subsistence farming. This is when we start enclosing fields. So we've got a simple enclosure here. We've got these bushes here. This is an enclosure. What we've got now, obviously nowadays, is fences and so on. But what we're starting to do, we're starting to plant crops large scale. Hence why we've got these lines here. This is a ploughed field. And what we're starting to do is use animals to help us plough fields, grow crops on a bigger scale. This is called subsistence farming. And this has been for the last sort of 10,000 years. Ancient Greeks, ancient Egyptians started using this form of farming all the way up to about the 1800s. Again, populations a little bit lower than what we've got today. Therefore, there wasn't that need to farm on a big scale like we do today. So this subsistence farming, again, very little impacts on the biomes, the environment, and grew enough crops for people just to live on, and anything they made extra anything they grew extra, they then sold at markets and made more profit. However, nowadays we have what's called industrial farming. Over the last 200 years, population has increased. No matter where you are in the world, populations have gone up. That's due to improvements in health. As a result, we've needed more and more food. So what we have to do, we have to go back from subsistence farming and make sure that we can take small bits of land and grow lots of food. And like you can see in this picture, we can, obviously with animals, we try and get them as fat as we can, so we can kill them and use them for meat as quickly as we can. So this is industrial farming. Now, what type of farming do we have in Australia nowadays? Well, unfortunately, we have a few of these industrial scale, but a lot of farming, subsistence farming, because of the land that we've got. We have all types of farming. We have sheep farming, cow farming, or cattle farming, as well as crop farming. But it's used on an industrial scale, but not to the extent like this picture is from America, where it's all to do about business. We still have lots of organic farming, so impact on biomes is quite high. Even farming in Australia nowadays, there's a lot about trying to use more sustainable farming techniques, grow more trees, because we've cleared a lot of trees, a lot of land for farms, and as a result it's led to soil erosion. We've lost about 47 species of native Australian grass because of land clearing, and because cattle have trodden all over the grass and killed it. Remember, cows, sheep, anything grown in Australia isn't native. Oranges, mangoes, all of those have been brought over, and we're not sure the impact it's had on ecosystems. We certainly know because of cattle farming, sheep farming, the destruction of those plants and grasses has led to a number of little mammals being killed, particularly billibees and that type of thing. So big impacts on ecosystems, and we've got to look at careful management strategies. Okay, well, that was quite a long video lesson about the different types of farming and the farming that's in Australia. So make sure you make your Cornell notes, spend plenty of time working out the keywords and explain all those processes.